All right, so this is the first of probably a small series of videos that we're going to create just to kind of walk you through what we're learning about this new browser. We have no affiliation with Comet or Perplexity. It's just something. I feel like the landscape's shifting in a lot of ways, and this is one of those pieces that I think is significant enough. It's worth taking a closer look at, and the information that I'm learning, I think, could and should be shared with other people. So we're going to show you kind of a few of the things that we're learning, not just about this tool. I honestly want to share maybe more because our whole team has been exploring and auditing AI tools very heavily over the last 6 months and a little bit before, but really dedicated to it this last 6 months. And we've been finding a range of amazing tools and teams that are doing things for creativity, for legal things, for organization. I just so many applications. Some things that just seem completely pointless but are still fun. Um, but what's interesting is we've been using Perplexity a lot lately, kind of as an alternative to Grok and ChatGPT. I'm sure you guys have already heard of those. And I almost see them as siblings in the same family. Like ChatGPT's the kind of creative but, you know, loose minded. Like you can't always trust what they say, but they're gonna really understand you when it comes to style and things like that. You go to Grok and it's going to just give you so much information, a lot of stuff you probably didn't even want. And maybe it's a little bit too dry and doesn't have kind of that nuance that ChatGPT has, but you can trust it a little bit more. But with either of those two, when you start trying to create articles and have citations and things like that, you can't really trust either of those. We've had some pretty scary misses with that. So we came across Perplexity, which has been a lot more reliable. Obviously, you still need to check everything and make sure things are right, but Perplexity's been really awesome as far as making sure we're providing better links, and it's really great at identifying existing sources and things like that. So we get this email from Perplexity saying that we are invited to try out their new browser, and so when we went to it, we got we got this page here, which seemed cool, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna start taking note, doing some screenshots, blah blah blah, and when we opened it, we get this screen, and there was kind of music playing. There's this animating orb. I just took a screenshot of it. But as we were looking down there, it said, "Hey, do you agree to the terms of service and privacy policy?" And I thought, you know what? Of anything that I would read those for, this is probably it, because when you think of the power and access that a browser has and the kind of information that you consume and that you engage with, and then you pair that with the ability for AI to consume and interpret and analyze that data almost instantaneously, that starts to raise some interesting questions, like is this going to create issues with privacy or things like that? And I think it's probably good to, be a little cautious. So we jumped in, we looked at the terms of service and Perplexity's privacy policy, and of course, they're super long. We went through as well as we could, but we ultimately went to ChatGPT to read those for us. And it was kind of interesting because it talks about access to the Google Drive, and that's one of my big concerns is, if we're using Microsoft or Google or any of these professional email services, what access does the browser have to sensitive company files and data and financials and things like that. And so I wanted to find out, and Perplexity's browser basically says if you're just using it as a browser, they don't have a way to record the screens and all that kind of stuff. But if you give it explicit sign-in access through OAuth, then they do have access to files on your drive. And I'm like, man, that's a little disconcerting, especially, I don't know if you guys know WeTransfer. We use that to, or have in the past, use that to send large files, and it's been a great tool. But their terms of service just got updated to basically say, hey, for new files coming in, we are planning on using those to train our AI. And I'm thinking, well, what does that really mean? I think that feels like such a loose term, and I feel like we're at the beginning of something that I think will require and get a lot more legal clarity. We're going to see a lot of that changing, I think, over the next few years on the legal side of things. But I wanted to kind of find out, and in their terms of service, Perplexity saying, "Hey, we promise not to use our drive, and we're only going to use it to deliver the services," those kinds of things. And I'm like, well, that's great, but when a company you don't really know is saying, "Hey, we have access to all your stuff, all your bases are belong to us," how much can you trust them when they say, "Hey, we're not really going to do this thing?" I think that was like the big. I don't know how many of you guys remember the beginning of Snapchat. They were just like, "Hey, we do all the stuff and the pictures delete, and we promise we're not saving them." And then we all found out later on that was an absolute lie. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. So then I was trying to figure out, well, who owns Perplexity, right? I didn't immediately know these individuals, so I thought, oh, let's find out the money behind it, right? So we start looking and we see some big names: SoftBank, NVIDIA, Jeff Bezos, and it kind of goes on. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm starting to get a feeling and a picture for why this is starting to gain the traction that it is. Because people are starting to, and I myself included, starting to go to Perplexity before we go to Google. And I don't know how Google's going to handle that. I know they're pushing really hard to try to be competitive with their AI analysis. And I think Google's Google, and they're going to continue to do awesome stuff. But I feel like this is a new player in the game that I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be around for a while, and I think it's going to get bigger. It's going to be interesting to see how people interact with it, because I was searching Perplexity the other day for some home repair stuff, and it pulled up things from Home Depot, and it provided a way for me to purchase those items directly through Perplexity. Yeah, it's kind of just an interesting thing. So yeah, it's kind of fun to watch. But I thought, you know what, we're just gonna track this. We're gonna share what we're learning about it. There's some really cool things that I think you can do. I did notice here, as soon as we came over to it, it's saying, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and sign in with Google?" And I'm like, I might hold off on that for now, but I will try browsing some sites, and I'll just show you. We went over to our site just immediately to kind of see what was happening, and it's kind of fun. You can kind of summarize the current page and get some stuff. And I don't know yet the full application other than just vanity for this. I mean, I'm sure if someone was doing some research, this is probably going to help a little bit. This is more of a convenience thing because you can easily do a lot of this stuff just going into the different ChatGPT or Perplexity or Grok. And I can't remember if I said this already or not. I probably did, but my hope is it's going to be interesting to see the way people use this Comet browser. And I'm curious to see if they will, like when you're talking about Googling something, are they going to say they're perplexing something? Are they plexing it? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how our society changes and how we see and feel about all this stuff. So I am not going to allow that. And yeah, anyway, until next time, I'll dive into some more stuff that we're finding. But yeah, we'll probably just discover some really cool stuff together.